I'm Hazel Bennett, 34, standing in my Malibu mansion with ocean waves crashing against the cliffs below my infinity pool. 10 years ago, I was disowned for choosing MIT over my family's plans. Today, I'm hosting a housewarming for my $12 million home, celebrating my tech company's success. As I arrange the last centerpiece, the doorbell rings. I freeze at the sight through the security camera. My parents are standing at my door after a decade of silence, uninvited and unexpected. Before I dive into this wild story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and join me on this journey of family drama that taught me what true belonging means. Springfield, Illinois wasn't exactly a tech hub when I was growing up. Our middle-class neighborhood was filled with practical people who valued stability over dreams. My father Richard worked as an accountant at the same firm for 30 years, and my mother Eleanor taught third grade at the local elementary school. My older brother James was the golden child, quarterback, student council president, and perpetual recipient of my parents' undivided approval. Our family photos showed smiling faces, matching sweaters during Christmas, and summer vacations to affordable destinations within driving distance. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. Until around my 10th birthday, I believed we were. I remember the precise moment when the first cracks appeared. I'd created a basic computer program that could generate simple animations, nothing revolutionary, but impressive for a fifth grader in the early 2000s. My computer teacher had praised me, suggesting I consider entering a regional technology competition. Computer programming isn't a real career for a young lady, my father said over dinner that night, not even looking up from his meatloaf. You should focus on practical skills. My mother nodded in agreement. Computers are just a fad, honey. What about joining the school choir? Your cousin Rebecca is getting solos now. I looked at my brother for support, but James just shrugged, unwilling to use any of his parental goodwill on my behalf. That night established a pattern that would define the next decade of my life in that house. While my parents attended every single one of James's football games, even driving 3 hours for away matches, they found excuses to miss my academic achievements. When I was 12, I created a database program that the school librarian actually implemented. My parents said they were too busy to come to the recognition ceremony. When my science project on early facial recognition algorithms won first place at the state competition, they claimed car trouble prevented them from attending. It just doesn't make sense to encourage these computer fantasies, my mother explained to our neighbor loud enough for me to hear. She needs to focus on realistic goals. The 8th grade science fair remains particularly vivid in my memory. I'd spent months developing a rudimentary app that could identify constellations when pointed at the night sky. Teachers were impressed, a local software developer even offered me a summer internship, which my parents later refused to let me accept. As I stood beside my display, waiting for the judges, I kept glancing at the entrance. My parents had promised to come. They had explicitly said they would be there. James had a basketball practice, but they assured me they would make it to my event instead. I waited for 3 hours. They never showed up. My project won the grand prize, and I accepted the trophy with a forced smile while scanning the empty audience seats. That night, I found them watching TV when I arrived home. "Oh, was that today?" my mother asked, not taking her eyes off her show. "Your father had to work late, and I had a migraine." "Did anything interesting happen?" I went to my room with the trophy hidden in my backpack. They never asked about it again. My grandmother Agnes was the one bright spot during those years. Unlike her daughter, my mother, Grandma Agnes saw potential in my interest in technology. During Sunday visits to her small apartment, she would let me use her computer without time limits. She even bought me programming books with money from her pension. "The world is changing, Hazelnut," she'd say, using her special nickname for me. "Don't let anyone clip your wings. Especially not family who should be helping you soar." When I was 16, Grandma Agnes died unexpectedly from a stroke. The last conversation we had was about MIT, her dream for me. "Apply there when the time comes," she'd said. "Promise me you won't settle for less than you deserve." I lost more than a grandmother that day. I lost my only ally, my only family member who believed in me. The tension at home intensified after her death. Without her buffer, my parents' criticism became more direct, more constant. My academic achievements were minimized, my technological interests mocked, my growing ambitions dismissed as unrealistic. High school became a countdown to escape. I poured myself into coding, staying late in the computer lab, building my skills and my applications simultaneously. I babysit and did data entry work to save money. I applied for every scholarship I could find. And I held tight to Grandma Agnes's final advice: don't settle for less than you deserve. Senior year of high school brought the inevitable collision between my dreams and my parents' expectations. I applied to colleges in secret, using the guidance counselor's office to submit applications. When the acceptance letters started arriving, I couldn't hide them any longer. Massachusetts Institute of Technology? My father's voice filled our kitchen one April evening, the crumpled envelope in his hand. He'd been checking the mail when I got home from school. You applied without discussing this with us? My mother sat down heavily at the kitchen table. MIT is across the country. It costs a fortune. We always planned for you to attend state, live at home, save money. I got a partial scholarship, I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. And I can take out loans for the rest. This is MIT, it's the best tech school in the country. Loans? My father's face reddened. Absolutely not. No daughter of mine is starting adult life in debt for some computer degree that won't pay off. I'd expected this reaction, but the reality of it still stung. The average starting salary for MIT computer science graduates is over $80,000. I could pay back loans quickly. This isn't about money, Hazel, my mother interjected. It's about family. We need you here. State has a perfectly adequate computer program if you're still set on that path. The argument lasted for hours, then days, then weeks. Every conversation circled back to the same points. They had a vision for my life: local college, living at home, eventually finding a job nearby, settling down with someone from our community. My vision couldn't have been more different. The ultimatum came on a Sunday night in May. My father called a family meeting in our living room. James was conspicuously absent, having already left for a pre-college football training camp. "We've thought about this carefully," my father began, sitting stiffly beside my mother on the couch. "If you choose to go to Boston, you're choosing to break this family apart. We won't support that decision financially or emotionally." My mother's eyes were red but her voice was firm. "If you go to MIT, don't plan on coming home for holidays. Don't expect us at your graduation. You'll be on your own, Hazel." "So you're disowning me for wanting education?" I asked, disbelief making my voice shake. "We're asking you to respect our family values," my father corrected. "The choice is yours." That night, I sat alone in my bedroom staring at the MIT acceptance letter and the modest scholarship offer. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. I could surrender my dreams to maintain family harmony, or I could pursue my passion and lose my family. The next morning, I sent my acceptance to MIT and my housing deposit. When I told my parents at dinner, my mother cried silently while my father stated flatly that I had made my choice and would have to live with the consequences. The following months were a slow, painful severing of ties. My parents spoke to me only when necessary, watching with detached interest as I packed for college. No goodbye party was planned, no shopping trips for dorm supplies occurred. I used my own savings to buy the essentials. On move-in day at MIT, my father dropped me at the airport with minimal conversation. "I hope you know what you're doing," were his parting words. That first semester was harder than I had anticipated. While other freshmen called home with updates or complaints, I maintained my isolation. Thanksgiving break was particularly difficult. The dorms emptied out while I remained, one of the few students with nowhere to go. My roommate Jasmine noticed my situation and invited me to her family's home in Connecticut for Christmas break. No one should be alone during the holidays, she insisted. Her family welcomed me warmly, no questions asked about my situation. It was my first glimpse of what unconditional support could look like. I spent the summer after freshman year working an internship at a small tech startup in Cambridge. The pay was minimal, but it allowed me to avoid returning to Springfield. I sent a brief email to my parents with my summer plans. My father's response was terse: "If you're not coming home now, don't bother coming back at all. You've made your choice clear." Those words solidified the break. I didn't respond, and they didn't write again. My graduation from MIT 4 years later took place on a brilliantly sunny day in Cambridge. As I sat among my peers in cap and gown, I couldn't help scanning the audience, harboring a small hope that my family might have had a change of heart. They hadn't. No familiar faces appeared in the crowd. Instead, a small group of friends cheered loudly when my name was called. Jasmine and her parents had come, along with 3 other close friends who had become my chosen family during those transformative years. We celebrated afterward with champagne and promises to stay connected despite our scattered job placements. When the HR representative at Techno Solutions in San Francisco called with a job offer the following week, I accepted immediately. The starting salary exceeded even my optimistic projections, and the distance from Illinois felt appropriate. It was time to build something new. By the time we reached our apartment complex, I had composed myself enough to present a calm face to Lily. The setting sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement of the parking lot as I helped her out of the car. "Why are we home so early, Mommy?" Lily asked, her small hand in mine as we climbed the external stairs to our second-floor unit. "Didn't Grandma make dessert?" "Not tonight, baby," I said, forcing a smile. "And tomorrow you get to wear your special outfit for School Spirit Day, remember? We need to get it ready." This successfully distracted her as we entered our apartment. While Lily chattered about her classroom's upcoming activities, I went through the motions of our evening routine: bath time, story time, tucking her into her small bed with the second-hand stuffed animals arranged just so. "Love you to the moon and back," I whispered, our nightly ritual. "And to the stars and home again," she finished sleepily, her eyelids already heavy. I kissed her forehead and quietly closed her bedroom door before collapsing onto the pull-out couch that served as my bed. Only then did I allow myself to truly feel the weight of what had happened. My mother's words replayed in my mind, each repetition more painful than the last. "We're not your bank anymore." The smug satisfaction in her voice when she'd said it, as though she'd been waiting for the opportunity to deliver that line. It wasn't just about the money. It never had been. Each time I'd asked for help, Catherine had extracted her pound of flesh in judgment and criticism. The first time, after Tyler left and I couldn't make rent, she'd written the check but then spent an hour itemizing all my failures. "If you'd listened to us about Tyler from the beginning. If you'd finished your business degree instead of working at that restaurant. If you'd put Lily in daycare earlier and worked full-time." Always if. Always my fault. I picked up my phone and scrolled through old photos, happier times when my parents had been proud of me. My high school graduation, where I'd been valedictorian. My acceptance to State University with a partial scholarship. Even my wedding to Tyler, before they'd decided he wasn't good enough for their daughter. Catherine had been different then, warmer, more supportive. Or had she? Looking at the photos now, I noticed how she always stood slightly apart, how her smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at Tyler. Had the judgment always been there, just beneath the surface? My phone buzzed with an incoming text. My father. "I'm sorry about tonight. Your mother is under a lot of stress with planning the trip. Let me know how much you need for the car and Lily's shoes. I can transfer it privately." I stared at the message, tempted to accept his offer. It would solve my immediate problems. But then I thought about the next crisis, and the next. How long would this cycle continue? My father enabling me in secret, my mother resenting me openly, and me caught between gratitude and shame. With trembling fingers, I typed my reply: "Thanks, Dad, but I need to figure this out on my own. I love you." I set the phone down and hugged my knees to my chest, finally allowing myself to cry properly. The tears came in waves: grief for the relationship I wished I had with my mother, anger at her cruelty, fear about how I would solve my financial problems, and underneath it all, a terrible suspicion that maybe she was right. Maybe everything was my fault. I thought back to my marriage with Tyler. How I'd stayed long after it became clear he was cheating, partly because I couldn't afford to leave. The financial dependence had trapped me, just as it was trapping me now with my parents. Around midnight, exhausted from crying but unable to sleep, I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, looking out at the quiet parking lot. My battered Corolla sat under the flickering security light, unreliable, unsafe, but mine. "We're not your bank anymore." The words that had devastated me hours ago now stirred something different, a flicker of determination. If I couldn't count on my parents, I had to find another way. For Lily. For myself. I wouldn't become my mother, using money as a weapon. And I wouldn't remain the daughter who kept coming back for more punishment. Somehow, I had to break free from this cycle once and for all. As the first light of dawn crept through the window, I made a decision. I would not ask my parents for money ever again, no matter what. It was time to find another way forward, even if I had no idea what that might be. The next morning, when I turned the key in my Corolla's ignition, it made a horrible grinding noise before falling silent. I tried 3 more times before accepting the inevitable. The car wasn't just unsafe anymore, it was completely dead. "What's wrong with the car, Mommy?" Lily asked from the back seat, already dressed in her school Spirit Day outfit, a yellow t-shirt with her school's logo that I'd bought secondhand from another parent. "It's just tired," I said, trying to keep the panic from my voice as I pulled out my phone. "We'll take a special car today." I opened the rideshare app, wincing at the $18 fare to Lily's daycare. That would leave me with less than $20 in my account, but what choice did I have? After dropping Lily off, I called my manager at the diner. "I'll be late, Teresa." "Car trouble. Again?" Her tone made it clear my job was hanging by a thread. "We open in 30 minutes, Allison." "I know, I'm sorry. I'm on my way now." I couldn't afford another rideshare, so I'd have to walk the 2 miles to work. Luckily, I'd packed my waitress shoes in my bag and was wearing sneakers, the only silver lining in an otherwise disastrous morning. I power-walked through residential neighborhoods, sweat soaking through my uniform shirt despite the early hour. By the time I arrived at Sunnyside Diner, it was 15 minutes past my start time, and my feet were already aching. "Table 5 has been waiting for coffee refills," Teresa said by way of greeting, barely looking up from the register. The morning shift was brutal. My regular customers, normally friendly, seemed irritated by the slower service. Tips dwindled with each grumpy exchange. During a rare quiet moment, I tried calling Mike's auto repair. "Dead starter, probably," Mike said after hearing the symptoms. "Could be the alternator too. Either way, parts and labor, you're looking at $800 minimum." My stomach dropped. "Any chance of a payment plan?" "Allison, you're still paying off the brake job from February. I can't carry any more credit for you, I'm sorry." By the end of my shift, I'd made only $42 in tips, less than half my usual take. My feet were covered in blisters from walking in my waitress shoes, and I still had the evening shift at Quick Stop convenience store ahead of me. I called another parent from Lily's daycare who sometimes gave us rides, but she wasn't answering. In desperation, I used another $18 for a rideshare to pick up Lily and drop us both at home, where Mrs. Guzman from downstairs had agreed to watch Lily for the evening, another $20 I couldn't really afford. "When is our car going to wake up?" Lily asked as I rushed to change my shirt for my second job. "Soon, baby," I lied, kissing the top of her head. "Be good for Mrs. Guzman, okay? I'll be home right after you're asleep." Another rideshare, another $15, got me to Quick Stop just in time for my shift. My manager Dave raised an eyebrow at my disheveled appearance but said nothing as I took my place behind the register. The evening dragged on endlessly. My feet throbbed, my back ached from standing all day, and exhaustion made it hard to concentrate on counting correct change. Around 9 p.m., during a lull, I sank onto the stool behind the counter and closed my eyes for just a moment. "You okay?" I jerked upright to see Michelle, my coworker from the weekend shift, standing in front of me in civilian clothes. "Just tired," I said, straightening up. "What are you doing here?" "Forgot my paycheck," she said, studying my face. "You look like hell, Allison." Under normal circumstances, I would have brushed off the comment with a joke. But this day had broken something in me. To my horror, I felt tears welling up. "Hey, what's going on?" Michelle's voice softened as she came behind the counter. "Dave's in the back. Talk to me." The kindness in her voice was my undoing. In hushed, hurried tones, I told her everything: the car, my mother's rejection, the ridiculous amount I'd spent on rideshares today, the dwindling tips. "I don't know what I'm going to do," I finished, wiping my eyes quickly as the door chime announced a customer. "I can't afford to fix the car, I can't afford not to have it, and I've got about $3 left in my account until payday." Michelle was quiet as I rang up the customer's gas and cigarettes. When we were alone again, she said, "Have you been to the community center on Maple? The one by the library?" "No, why?" "They have an emergency assistance program. My cousin used it last year when her heat got shut off. They might be able to help with the car." "I don't need charity," I said automatically, my pride flaring despite my desperate situation. Michelle gave me a look. "It's not charity, it's community support. We all need help sometimes." She pulled a scrap of receipt paper from her pocket and scribbled a name and number. "Ask for Jessica Miller. Tell her I sent you." I stared at the paper, conflicted. It felt like admitting defeat, like proving my mother right about my inability to handle my own life. But what was the alternative? No car meant no reliable way to get to either job. No jobs meant no apartment. No apartment meant. I carefully folded the paper and tucked it into my pocket. "Thanks." Michelle squeezed my shoulder. "And let me know if you need a ride. I'm off tomorrow and could take you to the center." After my shift ended at 11 p.m., I walked the 3 miles home in the dark, too broke to afford another rideshare, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. By the time I reached our apartment, my pride had been worn down by exhaustion and reality. I would call the community center tomorrow. As I checked on sleeping Lily before collapsing onto my couch bed, I tried to fight off the feeling that I had failed her. But the truth was, pride wouldn't buy her new shoes or fix our car. Sometimes being a good mother meant accepting help, even if it wasn't from the people you'd hoped would provide it. The Westside Community Center was housed in a converted elementary school, its brick exterior softened by colorful murals and well-tended flower beds. Michelle had dropped Lily at daycare for me before bringing me here, waving off my profuse thanks. "Pay it forward someday," she'd said simply. Now I sat in the waiting room, clutching the form I'd filled out detailing my financial situation. Around me, other people waited quietly, a gray-haired man reading a newspaper, a young woman with a sleeping baby, a middle-aged couple speaking softly in Spanish. Normal people. People like me. Still, shame burned in my chest. I'd grown up with parents who viewed social services as something for those people, the lazy, the irresponsible, the failures. I could almost hear my mother's voice, "A Parker on public assistance? What would people think? Allison Parker?" I looked up to see a black woman in her 40s with a warm smile and practical clothes, holding a folder. "I'm Jessica Miller," she said as I stood. "Michelle mentioned you'd be coming in. Let's talk in my office." I followed her down a hallway decorated with community artwork to a small but tidy office. Unlike the clinical government offices I'd visited when applying for Lily's healthcare, Jessica's space felt personal, with plants on the windowsill and children's drawings pinned to a bulletin board. "So," she said after we were seated, "tell me what's going on." Something about her direct but kind approach broke through my defenses. I explained my situation, the car, the jobs, Lily, all of it. When I hesitantly mentioned my parents' refusal to help, I was surprised to see her nodding with understanding rather than judgment. Family financial relationships can be complicated, she said. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the money itself, but the power dynamics around it. That simple observation, so different from Michelle's "your mom sounds like a piece of work" reaction, made me feel truly seen. Jessica reviewed my paperwork efficiently. Based on your income and situation, you qualify for our emergency vehicle repair program. We work with several local mechanics who provide services at reduced rates. The fund can cover up to $500, and you'd be responsible for the remainder, which you can pay in installments if needed. I stared at her, waiting for the catch. That's it? No. I don't know, humiliating hoops to jump through? She smiled. The only hoop is that we ask recipients to attend at least one financial literacy workshop. Not because we assume you don't know how to manage money, she added quickly, seeing my expression, but because everyone can benefit from more tools and information. Relief washed over me so powerfully that I had to blink back tears. I can do that. When are the workshops? We have one tonight at 7 p.m., actually. Our community financial advisor leads it. Jessica handed me a flyer. And we also have a single parent support group that meets weekly, if you're interested. I looked at the flyer, which featured a photo of the workshop leader, and felt my heart stop. Amanda Brooks? Jessica looked surprised. You know Amanda? I stared at the smiling face in the photo, older than I remembered, but unmistakably my former high school classmate and college roommate. Amanda and I had been inseparable until sophomore year, when I'd dropped out to marry Tyler. We'd lost touch after that, our lives diverging dramatically. We were friends, a long time ago, I said softly. Small world, Jessica smiled. Amanda's wonderful. She really connects with our clients because she's been there herself. Been there herself? The Amanda I remembered had been headed for success, smart, ambitious, from a family even wealthier than mine. What could have happened? After finishing the paperwork for the car repair assistance and scheduling a tow for my Corolla to their partner mechanic, I left the community center feeling lighter than I had in days. I had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. That evening, after my diner shift, I nervously entered the community center classroom where the financial literacy workshop was being held. About 15 people were already seated at tables arranged in a semicircle. At the front, arranging handouts, stood Amanda. She looked up as I entered, and I saw the moment of recognition in her eyes. Allison? Allison Parker? Hi, Amanda, I said awkwardly, suddenly aware of my waitress uniform and scuffed shoes. To my surprise, she rushed forward and hugged me tightly. Oh my God, how long has it been? 8 years? 9? Something like that, I said, returning the hug hesitantly. I didn't expect to see you here, of all places. An expression I couldn't quite read crossed her face. Let's catch up after the workshop, okay? I have so many questions. The workshop itself was eye-opening. Amanda didn't lecture or speak condescendingly about budgeting. Instead, she talked frankly about predatory lending, banking systems designed to extract fees from those who could least afford them, and practical strategies for building financial stability from zero. Most of us weren't taught this stuff in school, she said. And if your family didn't have the knowledge or resources, how would you learn? Financial literacy isn't a moral issue, it's about access to information and tools. Throughout the hour, I found myself taking notes furiously. Many of the strategies were things I'd never considered, approaches that might actually work with my limited income. After the session ended, Amanda approached me as other participants filtered out. Do you have time for coffee? There's a decent place around the corner that stays open late. 20 minutes later, we sat across from each other in a small cafe, an awkward silence between us as we both searched for where to begin. So, Amanda said finally, what brought you to the community center? My car died. I needed help getting it fixed. I fought the urge to justify myself, to explain that I wasn't usually the type of person who needed assistance. But that was my mother's voice in my head, not mine. Jessica said you've been there yourself. What happened? Last I knew, you were on track to become the next Wall Street hotshot. Amanda laughed, but there was an edge to it. I was, for about 3 years after college. Then the financial crisis hit, and I lost my job. Couldn't find another in finance with the market collapsing. Ended up moving back home, which was, she paused, challenging. Your parents weren't supportive? This surprised me. The Brookses had always seemed so perfect. Oh, they let me move back in. But my father had lost most of his investment portfolio in the crash. My mother blamed him, he blamed the system, and they both subtly blamed me for not somehow foreseeing it all with my fancy finance degree. She stirred her coffee. They divorced 6 months after I moved home. I'm sorry, I said, genuinely shocked. The Brookses had been a fixture in our community, seemingly untouchable. It was actually clarifying, Amanda said. Watching my father lose everything despite doing everything right showed me how broken the system is. It's not really about good choices versus bad choices, it's about having a safety net versus not having one. Her words struck a chord deep within me. My mother would disagree with you. According to her, every financial problem I have is the direct result of my poor choices. Let me guess, marrying young? Having Lily? Not finishing college? I nodded, surprised at how accurately she'd summarized my mother's complaints. Classic bootstrap mentality, Amanda said. It's comforting to believe we're all entirely responsible for our own circumstances. Means the bad stuff only happens to people who deserve it, and your own success is entirely your own doing. Until it isn't, I said, thinking of her father. Exactly. She looked at me closely. What brought you to this point, Ellie? I always wondered what happened after you left school. For the next hour, I poured out my story, the fairy tale wedding that turned into a nightmare marriage, Tyler's affairs and eventual abandonment, my struggle to support Lily on my own, and finally, yesterday's confrontation with my mother. We're not your bank anymore, I quoted bitterly. As if I enjoyed begging them for help. As if I wouldn't give anything to be financially independent. Amanda listened without interruption, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment before speaking. You know what I see, Ellie? Incredible resilience. You've been through hell, and you're still fighting for yourself and Lily. That's not failure, that's strength. Tears welled in my eyes at her words, the first purely positive feedback I'd received in longer than I could remember. And I have a proposition for you, she continued. The single parents group Jessica mentioned? I help facilitate it. It's not just talk therapy, we've created a practical support network. Childcare exchanges, skill sharing, resource pooling. It's made a huge difference for everyone involved. Including you? Are you a single parent too? She nodded. Divorced 3 years ago. My daughter Zoe is 7. I tried to reconcile this new Amanda with the girl I'd known, the one who'd had her entire life planned out in neat, ambitious steps. Life takes turns we don't expect, she said, as if reading my thoughts. But sometimes those turns lead us where we need to go, even if it's not where we thought we wanted to be. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Come to the group on Thursday. No pressure, just check it out. As I walked home that night, Amanda had insisted on paying for the coffee. I felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation expanding in my chest. It took me a moment to identify it, hope. Not the desperate hope of someone waiting for rescue, but the growing hope of someone who might, just might, find her own way forward. The community center's multipurpose room had been arranged with chairs in a circle, a far cry from the rows of the financial workshop. About a dozen people were already seated when I arrived on Thursday evening, chatting casually or helping themselves to coffee from a small table in the corner. Amanda spotted me hovering in the doorway and waved me over. Everyone, this is my friend Allison I was telling you about. Friend. The word warmed me as I took an empty seat beside her. Let's do quick introductions for Allison's benefit, Amanda suggested, and the group nodded in agreement. One by one, they shared their names and brief situations. James, a widower in his 40s with twin boys. Tanya, who had left an abusive marriage with her toddler daughter 6 months ago. Marcus, fighting for custody of his son while working full-time as a nurse. A dozen different stories, but all connected by the common thread of parenting alone while struggling financially. We're not just a support group, Marcus explained after the introductions. We're a practical resource network. For example, Tanya and I work opposite shifts, so we trade childcare. Saves us both hundreds in daycare costs. And James teaches basic car maintenance workshops for us, added a woman named Rachel. Saved me $200 last month when I learned to replace my own brake pads. We all have skills, Amanda said. Sometimes we just need help figuring out how to leverage them. For the next hour, I listened, occasionally contributing, as the group discussed challenges and solutions. They talked about programs I'd never heard of, strategies that had never occurred to me, and approaches to problems I'd thought were mine alone to bear. When the formal meeting ended, people broke into smaller conversations. Marcus approached me with a friendly smile. Amanda mentioned your car troubles. What's the make and model? Toyota Corolla, 2008, I replied. He nodded. Solid car. The community center's mechanic program will fix the immediate issue, but I could show you some basic maintenance that would prevent bigger problems down the road. I don't know anything about cars, I admitted. Neither did I, until I had to, he said with a shrug. You'd be surprised what you can learn when there's no other option. That became my mantra over the next few weeks, you'd be surprised what you can learn when there's no other option. The community center's program covered most of the repair costs for my car, which was ready within 3 days. Mike from the auto shop, now partnered with the center, worked out an affordable payment plan for the remaining balance. Funny thing, he told me when I picked up the car. That Jessica lady negotiated a better parts discount than I've ever gotten from my suppliers. She's something else. With reliable transportation restored, I could get to both jobs on time, which immediately improved my standing with my managers. But that was just the beginning of the changes. Tanya and I worked out a childcare exchange. 3 days a week, when our shifts didn't overlap, we watched each other's children, saving us both money. Her daughter Maya was just a year younger than Lily, and they quickly became inseparable. They're practically sisters, Tanya laughed one evening as we watched them building a blanket fort in my living room. Is it weird that I'm almost glad I can't afford cable? I responded. They're so much more creative without TV. That was another unexpected discovery, finding joy in simplicity, community in scarcity. Marcus made good on his offer to teach me basic car maintenance. On a sunny Saturday, he showed me how to check my oil, change air filters, and recognize warning signs before they became expensive problems. Knowledge is power, he said as I successfully identified the dipstick on my own. Especially when you don't have money. Meanwhile, Amanda's financial literacy lessons continued. She helped me create my first real, comprehensive budget, not just a vague awareness of bills due, but a detailed plan for every dollar. The goal isn't to never have fun or small luxuries, she explained as we worked at her kitchen table while our daughters played nearby. It's to make intentional choices about your money instead of reactive ones. One evening, as I was preparing to leave the diner after my shift, Teresa, my manager, approached me with an unusual request. A customer wants to speak with you, the woman at table 12. She loved her meal. Curious, I approached the table where a well-dressed older woman sat finishing her coffee. You're Allison? She asked. I wanted to compliment the cook. The apple pie was exceptional. Thank you, but I just served it, I explained. Our cook Harold made it. Actually, Teresa interjected, appearing beside me, Allison made today's pies. Harold was out sick. The woman looked impressed. Well, it was the best pie I've had in years. I own the bakery on 5th Street, and I know good pie when I taste it. Thank you, I said, feeling my cheeks warm at the unexpected praise. Do you have professional training? She asked. No, just experience. I used to bake with my grandmother. She handed me a business card. I'm looking for a part-time baker for weekend mornings. The hours would be early, 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., but the pay is $18 an hour. If you're interested, come by for a trial run this Saturday. After she left, I stared at the card in disbelief. $18 an hour was nearly twice what I made at the diner, and 4 hours of that would equal a full shift at Quick Stop. You should take it, Teresa said, surprising me. You're wasted on the lunch shift anyway. I could move you to evenings here, you do the bakery mornings, and quit that convenience store job. The possibilities spun through my mind: better pay, more consistent hours, one job that actually used a skill I enjoyed. It seemed too good to be true. But it wasn't. The bakery trial went well, and by the following week, I had a new job making artisanal pies and pastries at Sweet Sensations while continuing evening shifts at the diner. I gave notice at Quick Stop, reclaiming my late nights for sleep and my Sundays for Lily. With my new schedule and slightly higher income, I revisited the budget Amanda had helped me create. For the first time, I could see a small margin appearing between income and expenses, not enough for luxuries, but enough to start an emergency fund so I wouldn't be one crisis away from disaster. One evening in late July, about a month after my confrontation with my mother, my phone rang with my father's number. Ellie? His voice was tentative when I answered. I've been trying to reach you. I've been busy, I said, not untruthfully. Your mother told me you blocked her number. I hadn't, but I hadn't answered her calls either. How are you and Lily doing? He asked. Do you need anything? The automatic "we're fine" stuck in my throat. We were doing better, but fine would be an overstatement. Still, something had shifted in me over the past month. We're managing, Dad, I said instead. I've found some resources and support that are helping. Resources? I could hear the concern in his voice, the unspoken question about what kind of help his daughter might be receiving. A community center program helped with my car repairs, I explained. And I joined a single-parent support group. I'm learning a lot. That's good. He sounded surprised but relieved. Your mother and I worried when we didn't hear from you. The mention of my mother brought a fresh wave of hurt, but it was duller now, less raw. Dad, I appreciate your concern. But I meant what I said about figuring things out on my own. Not because I'm angry, but because I need to build my own life, one that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or support. There was a long silence before he responded. I understand. But I'm still your father, Allie. I'd like to see Lily, at least. We agreed that he could visit on his own the following weekend. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start, a relationship with boundaries I was defining for the first time. After hanging up, I sat on my couch, marveling at how much had changed in just 1 month. My circumstances weren't dramatically different on the surface. I still lived in the same apartment, still worried about money, still worked long hours. But beneath the surface, everything had shifted. I had resources now, not just financial ones, but knowledge, skills, and most importantly, community. As I heard Lily singing to herself in the bath, I realized something else had changed too, me. The desperate woman who had driven to her parents' house ready to beg for help was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who was learning not just to survive, but to build something new from the ashes of her old life. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect. But for the first time in years, I was moving forward instead of just treading water. And that made all the difference. 1 month after my car had broken down, I found myself in a similar but very different predicament. I was driving home from the grocery store with Lily, bags of carefully budgeted food in the trunk, when the Corolla's engine made an ominous knocking sound and the temperature gauge shot into the red zone. Not again, I muttered, pulling over to the side of the road. Steam was rising from under the hood, never a good sign. Is the car sick again, Mommy? Lily asked from the back seat. I think so, baby. I looked around, trying to get my bearings. We were in my parents' neighborhood, less than half a mile from their house. My father was away on business, which meant only my mother would be home. The universe has a strange sense of humor sometimes. I called Marcus, who had become my go-to for car advice, but got his voicemail. Then I tried Amanda, who also didn't answer. I weighed my options: call a tow truck I couldn't really afford, or walk with Lily in the July heat with groceries that would spoil. "We're going to visit Grandma's house," I told Lily, trying to sound casual. "The car needs to rest." I helped her out of the car, grabbed the 2 bags with perishables, and locked the car. We started walking down the tree-lined street, Lily skipping ahead despite the heat while I balanced the grocery bags and my purse. We had gone about a quarter mile when a silver Mercedes slowed beside us. The window rolled down to reveal my mother's perfectly made-up face, her expression a mixture of surprise and something I couldn't quite identify. "Allison? What are you doing walking in this heat?" "Car trouble," I said simply. "We're heading to your house to call for help." She glanced at the grocery bags in my hands, then at Lily's pink cheeks. "Get in. I'll drive you." It was a 2-minute drive to their house, filled with awkward silence. When we arrived, Catherine helped bring the groceries inside, directing us to the kitchen. "Lily, would you like some lemonade?" she asked, her tone softer than I'd heard it in years when addressing my daughter. While Lily happily accepted the drink, I stood awkwardly in the kitchen I'd grown up in, unsure of my place. Was I a guest now? A stranger? "Your car broke down again?" my mother asked, filling a glass with ice water and handing it to me. "Overheated," I replied. I was hoping I could call someone to take a look at it. "Richard is in Chicago until tomorrow," she said, as if that were the only help I could possibly need. I wasn't going to ask Dad for help, I clarified. "I have other resources now." Something flickered across her face, surprise, perhaps a touch of hurt. "I see." She busied herself wiping down the already spotless counter. "You haven't returned my calls." "I needed some space," I said carefully. "After what happened last time I was here." Catherine's hands stilled. "Your father says you're involved with some sort of community program?" The way she said community program made it sound like I'd joined a cult. "Several, actually," I replied, a hint of defiance creeping into my voice. "A single-parent support group. Financial literacy workshops. An emergency assistance program that helped fix my car last month." "So you're accepting charity," she said, her tone neutral but her meaning clear. A month ago, that comment would have crushed me. Today, it merely irritated me. "I'm accepting community support," I corrected. "And providing it too. I help other parents with childcare. I'm teaching a baking workshop next month." She looked at me with genuine confusion. "But why not just ask us for help? We're your family." It was such a blindly privileged question that I almost laughed. "Because your help comes with judgment and control. Because every time I've needed you, you've made me feel like a failure for needing anything at all." "That's not true," she protested, but weakly. "Isn't it?" "We're not your bank anymore," I quoted her words back to her. "Do you remember saying that to me? Do you remember how satisfied you looked when you said it? You keep asking for money." "I was asking for help." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "There's a difference. But you've never seen that, have you? To you, money is just another way to control the people around you." "That's completely unfair," my mother snapped, her cool facade cracking. "Is it? When was the last time you gave anything, money, time, attention, without expecting something in return? Without keeping score?" "This conversation is ridiculous," she said, turning away. "I've given you everything. And reminded me of it constantly," I replied. "That's not generosity, Mom. That's control." "Mommy?" Lily's small voice broke through our tension. She stood in the doorway, looking worried. "Are you and Grandma fighting?" I took a deep breath. "We're just having a grown-up discussion, sweetie. Everything's okay." Why don't you go play in the den? My mother suggested. I think your grandfather got a new puzzle you might like. After Lily left, an uncomfortable silence filled the kitchen. I heard footsteps and turned to see my father entering, his business suit replaced by casual clothes. Dad? I thought you were in Chicago. Got back early, he said, looking between us with concern. What's going on? Just catching up, my mother said tightly. Your daughter's car broke down near here, Catherine explained. I brought her and Lily back to call for help. My father frowned. Is it the same problem as before? I thought. It's different this time, I interrupted. Overheating, not the steering. I've got someone I can call. My father looked relieved, then puzzled. You do? Allie has developed quite the support network, my mother said with just a hint of sarcasm. Community programs. The way she emphasized those words made my blood boil. Before I could respond, my father surprised me. Catherine, that's enough. His voice was quiet but firm. Allison is making her own way, just as she said she would. That deserves respect, not condescension. My mother's eyes widened in shock. My father rarely contradicted her, especially not in front of me. I'm not being condescending, she protested. I'm concerned. These programs, who knows what kind of people? What kind of people? I challenged. Single parents working multiple jobs? People who lost everything in economic downturns they didn't cause? People who made one mistake and didn't have wealthy parents to bail them out? My father held up a hand. Both of you, please. This isn't productive. He was right. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. I didn't come here to fight. My car broke down, and we needed somewhere to wait. And we're glad you did, my father said firmly. Now, what can we do to help? And before you object, he added when I started to protest, offering help is what family does. It doesn't have to come with strings. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the genuine concern in his eyes. I could use a ride to get Lily home once someone looks at my car. But not money, I added firmly. I can do that, he agreed. My mother had been watching this exchange silently. Now she spoke, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. You said I use money to control people. Is that really how you see me, Allison? The vulnerability in her question caught me off guard. Yes, I said honestly. For as long as I can remember. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. That's not. I never intended. She trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. It doesn't matter what you intended, I said, more gently now. It matters how it affected the people around you. How it affected me. My father moved to stand beside my mother, placing a hand on her shoulder. Catherine, maybe it's time we really listen to what Allie is saying. To my astonishment, tears welled in my mother's eyes. In 28 years, I'd seen her cry perhaps 3 times, always in private, always quickly controlled. I only wanted to help you avoid my mistakes, she whispered. My parents had nothing. I grew up wearing second-hand clothes, never having the things other children had. When I married your father and finally had financial security, I swore my children would never know that kind of deprivation. But in trying to protect me from financial insecurity, you never taught me how to handle it when it came, I pointed out. You just swooped in with money and criticism. She looked stricken. I didn't know how else to help. You could have asked me what I needed, I suggested. Instead of assuming you knew best. My father squeezed my mother's shoulder. She's right, Catherine. We've been so focused on fixing Ellie's problems that we never stopped to ask what would actually help her. My mother wiped her eyes, visibly pulling herself together. I don't know how to be different, she admitted. This is all I know. It was perhaps the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. I'm learning new ways every day, I told her. It's never too late to start. We didn't resolve everything in that one conversation. Decades of dysfunctional patterns couldn't be undone in an afternoon. But for the first time, we had acknowledged them openly, which was a necessary first step. My father drove Lily and me home after Marcus came to look at my car, a cracked radiator hose, fixable but not immediately. On the way, he asked thoughtful questions about my new support systems, my jobs, my budgeting approach. Not judgmental questions, but genuinely interested ones. "I'm proud of you, Allie," he said as we arrived at my apartment. "Not despite your struggles, but because of how you're facing them." His words, so different from the disappointment I'd grown accustomed to, brought tears to my eyes. "Thanks, Dad." That evening, after Lily was asleep, I sat at our small kitchen table with the jars I'd set up based on Amanda's budgeting system. One for rent, one for utilities, one for car expenses, one for Lily's needs, and, the newest addition, one for emergencies. It was still mostly empty, but a few dollars from each paycheck were slowly filling it. As I dropped in another $5 from my tips that day, Lily wandered out of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. "What are you doing, Mommy?" "I'm saving money for when we need it," I explained, pulling her onto my lap. "See this jar? This is our just-in-case money. A little bit at a time adds up to a lot." She studied the jars with interest. "Can I save too?" "Absolutely." I found a small mason jar in the cupboard and labeled it Lily's Dreams. "What would you like to save for?" She thought for a moment. "A present for Maya's birthday." "That's a perfect thing to save for," I told her, kissing the top of her head. "Tomorrow we'll start with the first penny." As I tucked her back into bed, I reflected on how much had changed in just 1 month. My financial situation was still precarious, but for the first time I had a plan, skills, and community. I wasn't alone anymore. The relationship with my parents remained complicated, but the door had opened for something healthier. Not dependency, not estrangement, but perhaps, eventually, mutual respect. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more broken-down cars, more financial surprises, more difficult conversations. But I had found a resilience within myself that I never knew existed, a strength born not from isolation, but from the vulnerability of accepting help and offering it in return. As I closed Lily's door, I whispered a quiet thank you, not to my parents, not even to the community that had supported me, but to that desperate woman who had driven away from her mother's cruel words a month ago. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for finding another way. And to all of you watching this story, I want to thank you too. For those of you struggling with financial dependence or family control, know that you're not alone. Breaking these cycles is possible, even when it seems impossible. Have you ever had to redefine a relationship in your life when the old patterns weren't working? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from never needing help, but from learning to accept it with dignity and offer it without strings. Thank you for watching, and remember, you're stronger than you think.